All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks so much for joining us wherever you're watching from. As you well know, every week we try to make it a point to give you the goings on in the world of pop culture in our weekly podcast known as This Week in Pop Culture, the show in which we give you the latest in the past week in pop culture, whether we're talking about local news, whether we're talking sports, whether we're talking film and TV trailers and the like. We try to bring you up to speed so that way you are not left in the wind. And of course, I'm not going to be alone in talking about these said topics. So without further ado, I want to welcome my co-host, my partner in crime, Mr. Spillman Trueheart, aka Spills. What's going on, sir? You're muted, sir. Go ahead.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? How we doing today? Back at it again.
Yeah, we
The
took a bye week, y'all. We took a
we took
bye
a
week.
bye week, but I was hoping we could have did this last week so I could have talked big mess, but I can't talk no mess
Yeah,
this
you
week.
don't
So
want to talk no mess this week. I'm sure you don't want to talk no mess.
it's football season, baby. Then we talk about
Oh,
football now.
football season. I like that. Okay. I like the switch up. I like the
Go
switch
Commanders!
up.
Yeah.
So what Spillman's talking about, of course, we have the NBA playoffs that's going down as we speak. It started last week, but the main topic, which you probably see in the background, we did have a couple of trailers for some, horror franchises that are making their return, whether we're talking about the big screen or the small screen. However, I did want to dive into something that, a lot of people are kind of speculating is this idea of maybe there is a shared universe that is underway that hasn't really officially been announced, but perhaps with these upcoming projects, we'll get some further insight. But before we get into that, we do have a couple of other things that happen across pop culture, whether we're talking about some local news that happen, here in the greater, Washington area, DC metropolitan area, and also some news surrounding, as I said, the NBA playoffs, but also some film and TV news. So with that out of the way, Spillman, shall we dive in?
Let's get it.
All right, cool. So the first story that we're going to dive into to start off this week's episode of This Week in Pop Culture centers around some local news. We did have two things that went down. One centered around a well-known mall that is in our area in Wheaton, the Westfield Mall, that is. And then also some news of a fast food chain that is dipping its toe in the neighboring area and discussing dipping its toe in the neighboring area here in Maryland. So I'll start first on Monday, and this is a story out of the Baltimore Business Journal. It was made known that the fast food chain known as Tim Hortons has its sights set on opening a couple of locations in Maryland, 10, in fact, as part of its regional expansion plans. Now, for those of you that are not in the know, Tim Hortons was, or I should say, is a coffee chain that was founded by the professional hockey player of the same name back in 1964 in Hamilton, Canada. And the brand now has more than 6,000 locations across the world. Its closest location to to Maryland would be a newly open Norfolk, Virginia spot, and several shops that are in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Delaware. Now, diving deeper into Tim Hortons, they're known for their coffee and donuts. The fast food chain also serves breakfast, lunch, and baked goods and other beverages. Typically, it occupies roughly a 1,600 square foot space with indoor dining. Now, for the Maryland locations, the chain hopes to find freestanding buildings with drive-through capabilities or high traffic in-cape spaces. Spillman, I don't know if I've ever, chatted it with you or discussed it with you, but have you ever been to a Tim Hortons?
Unfortunately, I've never been to a Tim Hortons. I've always wanted to go. It seems like they have lots of tasty treats. You hear the Canadians, they talk about it like people from Boston talk about Dunkin'. So I imagine it's pretty tasty, or at least just ubiquitous. And I feel like anything ubiquitous, they have to do something right. I imagine they do coffee and donuts real well, but who
Yes,
knows?
they
They
do.
might have poutine. They might have poutine. You think do they have poutine?
Well, okay. So I'll say this. I'm well versed, or I should say, no, I'm not going to say well versed, but I am familiar with Tim Hortons, and this is by nature of my college experience. Um, going to having my undergrad degree in the Midwest and at an Ohio school, there are a lot of Tim Hortons that are in the Ohio area. So they were in the same way that you just as you said you have Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks. You have Tim Hortons everywhere. You have Bob Evans everywhere. You have Tim Hortons everywhere, and so like that was a frequent place, that I would hit up, in my breakfast routine, going to class and things like that. So, I can I can't speak for all the locations, but at least the ones that I had an opportunity to experience in Ohio when I was still had pursuing my undergrad degree. They're awesome. Like the coffee's great. They make a lot of their baked goods, as they talked about, fresh. Whether we're talking about donuts, things like that. So it's I enjoy Timmy Horton. So hopefully this ends up building into something more where we can anticipate having it, not just in Maryland, but maybe throughout the DC metropolitan area. Some they said that there was a location in Norfolk, Virginia, but maybe we can see some spots in Alexandria and Arlington, and of course in DC itself. So, but yeah, I'll punt it over to you. Hold on, I'm sorry.
You can hear me? Did you mute me?
Yeah,
Can you hear
yeah, I
me?
can hear you. Yep.
Okay, so the Tim Hortons, obviously Tim Hortons is Tim
Second,
Hortons.
sorry.
You don't seem like an iced coffee kind of guy.
I'm not a iced coffee type of guy, but I mean they have other beverages. They have hot chocolate. That was normally what I got was their hot chocolate, or their bagels or their donuts. I mean those are my normal go tos. So you're right. I'm not really a ice coffee type of person. However, you know what? I'll take that back. I'm not an iced coffee person in like the very literal sense. So like those frappies, like I enjoy frappies as much as, I would put that into that category of quote unquote iced coffee, cause but like just bare knuckle, just regular coffee, just dipping ice in it. Nah, I'm definitely not that type. So, um, but yeah, like it is exciting, the prospect of being able to have Tim Hortons make its way to the area, because as I said, it was a staple in terms of the experience that I had with my undergrad experience, and can't complain too much about it, because I hit them up all the time there. And I mean there are some places that even to this day I'm like, man, I wish they had it here in DC. And one of them, even though it is, you do have them in some locations in Maryland, I feel like it would be awesome if they had more locations in our area. And that's I don't know if you've heard of Donato's Pizza. Yeah, they're
That's
awesome
that,
too.
that that's completely foreign to me, ladies and gentlemen. Brandon's got all kinds of treats and snacks I ain't never heard of, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know none of that place. What kind of pizza do they do? They do a Detroit style with
So they
thick crust, or
do
do they do
no, they do a
thin?
thin crust. They do a really good thin crust pizza. But they're outside of their thin crust pizzas, they do like steak and cheese sandwiches, chicken, like I want to say like bacon chicken and ranch sandwiches that are really good. So yeah. Yeah, they're on point with their sandwiches as well as their pizza. Um,
Okay.
but I mean, I looked them up. I mean, there are a couple of locations like in the outskirts of like Maryland, like very I want to say more rural parts of Maryland, but there aren't really that many that are here in the area. And when I was in undergrad in Midwest and Ohio, like you had them everywhere. As I said,
Mm.
Donato's was everywhere, Bob Evans was everywhere, Tim Hortons was everywhere. You didn't really have a lot of Safeways. For those of you that are from the Midwest, you had Kroger's. Kroger's was that version of Safeway. So, but yeah.
What do you think the people that own the Wawas and the Royal Farms are going to do with this Tim Hortons coming in? Because does Tim Hortons sell gas too, or is it just coffee?
It's just coffee.
Okay, so then
But
they're not worried about it.
but I will say this, based off of the way that they explain this story, I can possibly see it being paired up with a Costco or some other high end place, a place that sells things in bulk. And I mean, as we all know, with our Costco's, we have gas stations with those Costco locations too. So I'm sure that they would figure out some type of way to do it, or even having some gas station locations pair themselves with Tim Hortons. Like I would
Hmm.
be that wouldn't be surprising to me, because I feel like you could pair that well together in terms of having those things. Good morning, Ray. Good to see you. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to us getting more Tim Hortons in the future. And I know, as I said, they're dipping their toes into having some locations in Maryland, but hopefully, it expands, is successful, and is able to expand further in Virginia as well as DC. Let me see. Have another comment from Ray. Tim Hortons competition will be more with the. Yeah, you're right,
That's what I
but
figured. I figured that.
you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. You're absolutely right. But I'm not gonna lie. Tim Hortons can give Dunkin' Donuts some go. They can give him some go. So, but the other part of the story that I wanted to be able to dive into was what happened on, I believe it was Wednesday. So let me get this back up. As I mentioned, outside of the story with Tim Hortons, we did have a story, another Maryland story, if you will, surrounding the Westfield Mall in Wheaton. And this was a story from Fox 5 on Wednesday. It was revealed that the company that owns Westfield Mall in Wheaton, Unibel Radomco Westfield, defaulted on their $235 million loan. Just to give some further information into the mall itself, the mall was built back in 1958 and currently stands as the fourth largest mall in the greater Washington area, and still, as we speak, is at 90% capacity, or say occupancy, thanks to having a Costco. I know we were just talking about Costco a moment ago. They have a Target, they have a Dick's Sporting Goods, just to name a few. However, according to the story, despite being nearly full with businesses, it's likely that the respective rents of its business tenants are not covering the cost of the loan, or turning a profit. While it's stated in the story that a complete shutdown is unlikely, or a last step, if you will, um, it's also speculated that this defaulting might be a negotiation strategy for the company that owns Westfield Mall. Um, Currently, it's still unknown what might be the next step for this mall. Uh, but it is a destination for shoppers in the greater Washington area. So Spillman, I'll punt it over to you. I'm sure there've been plenty of times where you made the trip to Westfield Mall over in Wheaton, Maryland. What are your thoughts on this story?
I think this is another example of corporate greed in America, ladies and gentlemen. Because who was giving $250 million for the Wheaton Mall? How could you take a loan out for that much? Hold on, ladies and
Yeah,
gentlemen.
you're fine. No, I definitely, get where what Spillman's saying, but it's crazy. I wanted to be able to dive into the nature of malls and where they stand right now. So I will dive into that. I'll punt it back over to you, Spills. What were you saying? Oh, okay.
Give me 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. We have a Mr. Baby technical difficulty. We need to get
No
a graphic
worries.
for this.
No worries. I'll pull myself up. All good. Um, but I guess a couple of things that come to mind immediately when talking about the story. And first off, malls in and of itself, if anyone has noticed, have started to dwindle in the last couple of years, and I feel like there are a number of factors that play into that. But I guess the main one that probably comes to mind immediately is just the idea that the shopping habits of consumers, of customers, have changed drastically over the years. And unfortunately, thanks to the pandemic that we had a couple of years ago, that kind of sped up that change and that momentum of those purchase habits that customers have. Far more often you have customers that are all about the online convenience of being able to get their goods versus having to go to the store. If you're thinking about the process of going to the mall, I know at one time growing up as a kid, there was a whole process, right? And I feel like customers these days that are so busy have less and less patience for that process. If you're talking about someone who is single on their own, you have to find a parking space. You have to determine, okay, what do I have to pay for this parking space? You have to also determine wait times when you are in line with the cashiers once you're finished buying all the goods that you have. And this is amplified when you're talking about having a family, where you have to also figure out. I'm gonna put Spillman in a moment. This is amplified when you're also talking about having a family, where it's a process just to be able to collect everybody to get them ready to go on a ride to a mall. And then add to that the issue of finding a parking space, which I just mentioned, and also making those multiple trips to those said stores, and the added time of waiting in line. So Spillman, I have you back. I guess what I was talking about just a moment ago is just the idea of how the shopping habits of consumers have changed, where far more people are taking advantage of the online options to be able to have the goods delivered to you, or to have it ready for you already by the time you get to the store, versus going through that entire process of making your way to the store, and also searching throughout the store to be able to do that. I don't know what your thoughts are on it are.
I think this is just that may sound like it's the reason why this place is closing, but it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like a company that's not Westfield. You see this? The logo of Wheaton said it's owned by
Yeah, right.
Westfield. It
It's
says it's
funny.
owned by Westfield, but it's not owned by Westfield. You said a name of a corporation that sounds like somebody put it in a word salad generator. So somebody made a word salad generator company. They got a loan for $250 million on Wheaton Mall. Which, if you and I went to the bank and said, "Hey, we want to get $250 million for Wheaton Mall," they'll be like, "But Wheaton Mall's not worth 200." That obviously they defaulted on a loan, but what was the like? That just doesn't seem like something that's real, ladies and gentlemen. These are the things that happen in our world now. They tell you something's going bankrupt, but then when you look into it, it's not going bankrupt. So it's kind of sad to see. Um, one of my one of my good friends, she used to work at the Wheaton Mall. We used to go spend a lot of time there. I've spent a lot of time at Wheaton Mall. I'm really sad to see it go, but I mean, this is just corporate greed. The people who move numbers back and forth, they move the numbers, and then somehow they made money because they lost $250 million. I don't understand how that works, but this is the status of our economy, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I will preface it with this. They did specify that closing this mall is literally the very last option, is literally like the last straw. Um,
That's what they
unlike
always
a
say
lot
though.
of
With somebody breaking up with you,
but
they
I'm
be like,
saying,
"It's not
I'm
you,
saying,
it's
here's the
me."
thing though. Here's the thing though, which I feel like makes it a different circumstance in other malls, and we can both agree to this because there have been malls recently that have like not survived the pandemic, and a lot of them are shutting down. One good example that I can think of right off the bat is Mazda Gallery, that's in Uptown
And they print
DC.
money up there.
Yeah, and that's Uptown DC, and the income earners that you have out there, are pretty high. So you would think that that place would survive, and slowly but surely, a lot of those shops were going. So, and they weren't like low end shops. You had what was it, Joseph A. and Bank. It was what is it, Neiman Marcus. Like it was a lot of like high end
It was
stores.
primo retail for sure.
Right, right. So, unlike that place where you started to steadily have a lot of these places shut down, and it got to the point where the only place that was actually there were some
It was
of the
the movie
basement
theaters.
shops. And I think the only
Yeah.
one at one point was like McDonald's. And it was really weird to kind of have that empty mall, but just have that one, those one couple of shops that were handful of shops that were in the basement. But that's not the case that you have with Westfield. Just as they were saying, more than like
90% occupancy.
90% of the space is being used. So like it's not like isn't there aren't tenants there that see value in having their store there. So I mean, there's an opportunity to be able to redevelop that area. As they said, they may be trying to use it as a negotiating strategy, but I don't know if that's like the best tactic to use, because that it there are a lot of things at risk that outside of being able to ensure that the tenants that the tenants are able to secure those places. It trickles down to a lot of other things. I mean, it affects jobs because you have folks that are working, likely work or live in that surrounding area, and so all they work at many of those said places that we talked about, whether it's Costco or Target or any of the other major shops that are there. And then a lot of people don't really think of this either. Even if you don't work there, that can affect the actual folks who live in the area as well, and whether people move to that area, because oftentimes when you are talking about living in a given destination, given place, that factors into whether or not you decide to move there, or whether you decide to continue to live there because you want to have that convenience of having those places where you're buying your goods and services nearby. You don't want to have to drive 20-30 minutes down the road on a good day to be able to do those said things. You want to be able to be near it. So I mean, I feel like there are a lot of things that are at play. Hopefully they're able to figure it out and figure out a solution, because there are a lot of things that can be domino effects, unfortunate domino effects of this mall potentially closing. But like I said, I
It's going to
will.
close, Brandon. I'm sorry to tell you. I hate to be a negative person like this, but
Nah, have faith.
they didn't take out a $250 million loan if they weren't going to close it. Because when you take out a loan for $250 million, you can say, "Oh my God, we're so bad up for money. We had to take out a $250 million loan." But they didn't actually have to if they have 90% occupancy. Like, I imagine it said in the article, Wheaton Mall was erected in 1958. There's no reason that they needed to take out a $250 million loan. It's not like they did any they didn't put in a space ramp or a heliport or anything like that. They didn't do any of that. They just took out a $250 million loan so that the people who own that holding company can take out $250 million and then close that joint. That's what they're doing. That's unfortunately, this is venture capitalism. They've done it with many retailers in this country. They're doing it all the time. Like, it's just a bad way that we do business in America these days. And, I feel like they're going to look back on the history books and they'll be like, these people were robbing people and they were doing it with smiles on their faces from yachts. And it's just crazy. So I wish that it would stay open.
Now, I agree with you,
It's
Ray. Like I've
always
been to
busy.
Wheaton Mall, and it's never
It's
like not
busy,
busy. It's
but
never
it's
not
not
busy.
worth
So I'm
$250
trying to
million
understand where
too.
it's going. Like where's all of that going? Because it's not like it's not busy. It's not a ghost town. It's
It's the
always busy.
people that own that holding company. Say the name of it because it's not something you could remember because they did that on purpose. Look, say the name. You got it right pulled up. Look at the name. The name is a crazy name, ladies and gentlemen.
It
Listen to
is.
the
It
name.
is. So,
Look, say the name for us again.
Unibil, Radomco, Westfield.
Who is Unibuild Radomco Westfield? Like, it sounds like Westfield was owned by three other people. Like, who are these three other people that's in the room with them? That's crazy.
Mm.
Unibuild. We're gonna build one person, the Wheaton Mall, and we're gonna take
Hey
all
yo,
the money.
hey
We're gonna
yo,
take all the money,
hey
ladies and
yo,
gentlemen.
hey,
That's what we're gonna
oh
do.
man. But that's gonna wrap it up for what we have here talking about our local news. What are your
We're gonna
thoughts on
start a
it?
news shirt, ladies and gentlemen, and the Spillman's just gonna be mad about stuff. Ugh.
What are your thoughts on it? Are you guys excited about Tim Hortons? For those that are familiar with Tim Hortons, about it, adding some locations in Maryland. And what are your thoughts on this whole crazy Westfield mall situation in Wheaton? You can let us know in the comments. But we're going to switch gears over into film and TV in our film and TV talk segment. Let me pull that up for us now. And we had a couple of things that happened, in the world of film and TV. Searchlight Pictures will to start us off. The Clever Card Game promo announced the additions of Sarah Michelle Gellar and Elijah Wood, who you seen here, to be cast in the sequel to his 2019 horror film Ready or Not, which is appropriately titled Ready or Not, Here I Come. Though the initial film followed a bride who learned of her new family's wedding night ritual, where a murderous game is played in order to appease an ancient family deal with the devil, details are still unknown for the sequel now in production. Spillman, I believe you saw Ready or Not, if memory serves. What are your thoughts on this sequel, which is now in production?
I'm ready for this sequel. I think it's going to be a good one. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Um, I think that the fact that they're adding Elijah Wood and Sarah Michelle Gellar is for people my age. Like Elijah Wood, he is Mr. Frodo, and Sarah Michelle Gellar. That's Buffy, baby. Buffy coming on its heat on the movie screen. So we happy to see that Buffy back outside getting these checks because she ain't been getting checks for a while. I feel like they've been shelving her. She got on the wrong side of 30, but now she's back on the right. Because you get on the wrong side of 30, they don't call you for 10 years. Then they have you do a magnum opus and come back. And this is, I think, Sarah Michelle Gellar's turn. I'm happy to see it. We grew up on her. She was great in a lot of the movies. She did horror. She did I think she did some comedy, but mostly horror and drama. And I'm happy to see her back. I think she was in, what was that movie with Ryan Phillippe where they was brother sister, they was kissing? What was that? Cruel
Whole
Intentions?
Intentions.
Oh
Yeah,
my. That one
classic.
was fraught with
Wild movie. Wild
weird,
movie.
weird taboos. So,
Yeah,
I'm
wild
happy to
movie.
see her back outside. Shout outs to Sarah. She's one of us. She's one of the millennials, and we got to do better with keeping our millennial stars up. We don't need no new stars. Forget Timothy Chalamet. We
Well,
don't want
hey,
to see
look,
him.
I'm gonna challenge your millennial statement. And this is actually kudos to Sarah because she's quite a deal older than us. I think she has us by a little bit, but you wouldn't know, looking at her, that is the case. But and I also say this, that she's still been doing her thing behind the scenes, because I mean she was most recently on what was it, Dexter Original Sin, where she was in the that forensics department that of course Dexter would eventually develop his career in the main series, of course Original Sin being a prequel series, and kind of establishing how he came to be with the Miami Department. But no, she's been doing her thing, behind the scenes, and popping up here and there throughout a number of projects. So it's good to see that she's popping up in this franchise as well. It's not going to hurt in having Sarah Michelle Gellar or Elijah Wood in this franchise. The first one was a lot of fun, unexpectedly. It surprised a lot of people. It surprised me in terms of how clever it was, how funny it was. There's a lot of dark humor, in that Sid film. But I mean, it's a no-brainer because, like, I'll say this, and this is within the story. I knew it was successful, but just to give you an idea of more specifics, it grossed $28 million at the domestic box office on a $6 million budget. And I mean, a lot of times, for those of you that are not aware, when you're talking about like the publicity end of a given film, um, it's not uncommon to have the same budget with your publicity be the same budget that you have for your film. So if you're talking about, a $6 million film, and you're hypothetically talking about a $6 million publicity budget, that's what, 12 million. And now you're saying that the film was able to more than double that said profit. I mean, it's a no-brainer. As I said, that's just the domestic box office. I didn't give the overall box office. So um looking forward to what they have in store. There were a lot of things, if you recall, spills that they did tease in the original film in terms of, like, types of games that they play. So I'm curious to know if they decide to explore some of those other games that they kind of tease that they utilize in this said ritual. Because if memory serves, hide and seek was just one of them. There were other ones that they kind of alluded to, and hide and seek was the one that they ended up selecting, at least for that original film. So does that mean that they're going to, repeat the same game, or will we have a different game? Uh, I don't feel like it's a spoiler at this point, but I will try to avoid spoilers by saying, do we have additional family members? Maybe that family was bigger than what we anticipated. So, everyone, there's still some other players in the game, so to speak, that are affected by this said family ritual, and maybe they want their revenge. Like, who knows? Who knows? Or maybe it's a new family. Maybe they're just refreshing it completely, and you have a new family that or a new rich elitist family that is kind of did the similar thing to the family in the first film. And so they kind of pull, because Weaving is coming back. Our protagonist from the first film is coming back. So maybe she's being pulled in as kind of like a consultant, or someone to provide advice to the protagonist in the new film. Who knows?
We'll
um
wait to see. We can't wait to see it in theaters. We'll probably, get you somebody to watch it with you. You go, ah, and do a jump scare. So yeah, that'll be very good.
But the other part that I wanted to talk about with our film and TV story spills is about the BET Awards. And apparently, we are going to get, we're still going to get Kevin Hart as our host for the BET Awards, for the 2025 BET Awards. This year's awards, which the network refers to as and this is, from BET, an announcement that they sent. This year's awards, which they refer to as culture's biggest night, will recognize the past 25 years of cultural artistry and honor influential voices in music, film, TV, and sports. The show is set to air on June 9th at 8 p.m. And it's going to take place at the Peacock Theater in LA. So, Spills, BET Awards, uh, Kevin Hart, what are your thoughts?
I think Kevin Hart is a great host to shows like these. He's obviously a comedic genius. He's great with banter. He's really good with crowd stuff. And I actually kind of look forward to seeing Kevin Hart at a time like this, because a lot of people have gotten in trouble for stuff that they shouldn't. And Kevin Hart actually has been talking about people getting in trouble for things that they shouldn't to their faces when they do these kind of shows. Like, I remember once a certain executive music mogul was with Kevin, and Kevin was like, "What did you just say?" On live air. I think it was at the BET Awards. So I'm very interested to see, like, what quips and funny things he has to say about a lot of the things that's happened in the last 6 months to a year. Um, with celebrities and the like. I think it's been a good year for music, and it's a good place for BET to have the show. So I feel like because these are all things that are happening concurrently, it's time for BET to go back with a more established star, because I'm sure that Kevin can bring some of his audience, and Kevin's audience isn't just the brothers and the sisters. So hopefully, they can do well with their ratings and everything. I'm very interested to see what that does.
For sure, for sure. I guess I'll say this. I do agree with, all those points that you made. My only concern is when we're talking about just that idea of what have you done lately or what have you done for me lately. I know sports is very much like that, and I say comedy is like that as well. The last time that I remember seeing Hart was him emceeing a lot of the All Star game for the NBA, and I'm not gonna lie, like a lot of those things were not falling. Like there were a couple of things here and there that were funny, but it was just there were other times for the most part where I was like, okay, that didn't work, that didn't land, tried too hard here. Like and I love Kevin Hart. I think Kevin Hart is one of the greatest comedians we have right now. I'm just hoping that they're able to, just as you said, to do something memorable and unique. And I mean that's for all intents and purposes. I mean that's what he's promised. He's been quoted as saying, I'm honored to host the 25th BET Awards. It's crazy to believe. Gosh, 25 25 shows. That's crazy, but I
25 is
digress.
crazy.
He said this year marks the 25th anniversary, and my partners at Heartbeat, BET, and JCE are pulling out all the stops to make it a night to remember. It's a black tie affair, and you're all invited. Tune in on June 9th, only on BET. So I mean, it sounds like he has some plans of some things to do to make it memorable. I just hope that it's just not a repeat of what we got during the NBA All Star Weekend, because I
I
was
feel like
looking
it'll be
forward to
different.
him.
The NBA All-Star Weekend, like, it's generally not MC'd. So I feel like because it's not an MC'd show, it felt like Kevin was trying to force himself into the festivities that he didn't need to force himself into.
Okay, that's good.
He was funny at points when he was doing
It
that, but
was. There
points
were a couple points. Stop,
it was
bro.
like, yeah, it was kind of like it's kind of like being at an open run in the park in the summertime, and it's just a dude on the mic just talking bad about people on the court. And people don't like that. They don't like to play basketball and be like cut up on. What is your favorite BET Awards moment since it's the 25th anniversary?
Oh man, I mean, there. I mean, there are a lot of. I mean, there are performances that come to mind. Uh, I think you were talking about that moment. I do remember that moment, like watching watching the show that year and seeing that. Like, so I would say that would be up there. That would definitely be up
Yeah.
there. And then just the irony of the fact of where we are now, and it's like way back when, like it was, we already talked about it, already commented on it. So yeah, crazy, as I said, crazy to believe that it's been 25 years. Because now I had to think about it. It's like, has it been 25 years? And I'm like, yeah, it's 2000 was 25 years ago, man. Like,
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's in the name, but it's like it's kind of hard when you to wrap your brain around that. That was
and
25
then
years
you
ago.
have to kind of like, yeah, you kind of have to accept it, be like, yeah, it's been 25 years. Like, yeah, you're
Yes,
right.
that was back when they
That
had
math.
PlayStation 2. It's on
Right.
PlayStation 5 now.
Right.
The console life is like 7.5 to 8 years, so that makes sense. But I think my favorite BET Awards moment, obviously, right before his untimely passing, but the part where Rick James was on stage and he said, "Never mind what that little girl said to me. I'm Rick James."
But wow, wow. I mean, there've been definitely been some wild moments. But I'm sorry, the
That's for sure.
one that you gave before that, yeah,
No, the
that
one that one was good, but he said I'm Rick James. Like
nah.
it's like, but it was good. It was like kind of funny because they had the like he and Tierra Marie were like just basically rolling around in the aisles and stuff, singing real bad,
Yeah.
which was just tremendous. I think that we should let more old stars embarrass themselves in that way. Just like Tina Marie was just going for it. I was just like, this is incredible. Then he got up on the stage and said the line, and it was like right in the time where the line was still like it was at the peak of it. So I just that was my favorite moment in that award show.
Cool beans, cool beans. So that's going to do it for what we have in our film and TV talk. Let us know what your thoughts are. Whether we're talking about Kevin Hart doing the 25th folks, 25th BET awards, and also in talking about Ready or Not, Here I Come. So the Ready or Not sequel and the casting editions that they have, and whether you're excited about the film itself making its way to theaters. I know they haven't officially, if memory serves, announced the actual date in which it arrives. We just know now that it's in production. So, but switching gears to our sports cooler talk, I'm sure Spillman is looking forward to this so much. So, oh, hold on. Sorry, Spills, lost you there for a moment. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I was
sir.
just
Go
saying,
ahead.
poor Shador Sanders. I know it's not a topic today, but they did that boy wrong. They shouldn't have did that. I hope that he uses that fuel as rage so that he can show the NFL that he is the greatest quarterback of all times. I'd like to see that, but you know, Brandon wants to talk about basketball, so go ahead, Brandon. Go ahead, talk about what you want to talk about.
Indeed, indeed. So, of course, we had a bye week last week, and talking about the NBA playoffs. It started officially last week, last Saturday, April 19th. And following the this was following the wrap up of the play-in tournament, in which you're securing that official seventh and eighth seed, both in the West and the East. There were a lot of intriguing stories that happened, as well as some injuries that went down. So, Spills, I'm going to pull up the bracket and see who you have going past the first round. Of obviously, we do have one first round that is already wrapped, that being with the Grizzlies and with the Thunder. But we're going to try to succinctly, give our thoughts on who's going to make it in these other matchups that are still ongoing. So let me see if I can bring it up here and share the screen for you guys. Give me one moment. Let's see here. Here we go. All right. Let me know if you can see me. If you can see the Spills.
Not yet. You got to keep
Okay.
going. There we
All right.
go. Now I
It
can see
should
it.
be up now. And let me make this a little bigger for us. Cool. All right. So as I said, we do have one first round matchup that's already secured at this point, and that's with the Oklahoma City Thunder getting past the Grizzlies. I don't think that this is really that shocking that they sweep past this series. I mean, yes, the Grizzlies had Ja Morant, and we did have an unfortunate ending to that series because he ended up getting injured, unfortunately. But outside of Ja Morant, I really didn't think that they had any answer for how deep the team was in terms of their rotation. Spillman, maybe you think differently in terms of the reason behind them being able to sweep past the Grizzlies, but I mean, I would say that is mine.
I think that the injury definitely hurt the Grizzlies. Ja definitely got hurt right when they needed him to finish out that game 3 that they lost. And once they lost game 3, it was pretty much over because Ja was not coming back. He got hurt really bad. It was a very bad fall that he took. But that's the rest of that team has to rally around because they were up at that point, I think like 15 to 20 points, and they lost it. Like I think they came back from like an all-time comeback, but obviously Ja got hurt before it happened. So I just feel like sure they have a lot to do. I feel like this might be they need to blow it up because John Morant is not reliable. Um, he gets hurt
Especially,
all the time, or he
yes,
be like
I,
doing
I was gonna say,
antics.
especially off the court too. Like
Yeah,
considering
yes.
there was an opportunity to learn from the error that you made, and it seemed like nothing was learned, and we're still look where we are. We're still back where we were before.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm not really surprised by that. Like you're not. I think that obviously the Cavs are probably going to send Miami home. Miami's lucky to have made the playoffs. I think also the Bucks. It's over for the Bucks. I don't see the Bucks coming back
Well, I
from
tell you
this.
what,
And also,
let's pause on that real quick. Let's
okay, we're
finish
just
up
going to
what
do
we
it.
have on
Okay.
the
Yeah.
West, and then we'll make our way
Okay.
to the
We'll do the
East. So
West. We'll do the West. Okay. This 4-5 matchup with Denver and the Clippers, I
yeah.
think it's whoever has the best last game. I think that one's gonna
And
go
who would have
7.
thought? Like, because I'm gonna say this, like, I don't think
Kawhi
anyone
Leonard's
anticipated that this would be, as entertaining of a series that it has been. Like all the other ones, don't get me wrong. I mean, there've been some here and there that have had, great performances, but like this is the type of matchup that you want to see when you're talking about the playoffs, of it just going back and forth and it just really being nail biting in terms of who clearly has the advantage. So, um, and whether we're talking about on both ends of the floor, whether we're talking about what we have with the Clippers with Harden and with Leonard, and then also on the other end that you have with Joker and the rest of the crew there, and I mean I think it's kind of being slept on of having what's his name, on the Clippers too, in terms of his defensive
Ben Simmons.
versatility. Yeah,
Yeah, because he's definitely a big that can guard both Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. And he's giving those two guys fits, even though they had that big bucket. They eked that game out the other night with that uh game winning putback dunk. That was crazy that Aaron Gordon did. They were
yeah,
in the did you see the
yeah. That
post
whole
game
exchange.
interview where they were like, "Hey, was that a pass?" And Aaron Gordon was like, "Of course that was a pass." Asked Joker, and Joker was like, "That was not a pass." Shooting the shot, it just didn't look a pass.
For sure, for sure. Lost Spillman there for a second. We'll get him
So,
back in
hello?
the.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah,
Can
yeah.
you
We
hear me?
got you. We got you. Go ahead.
Technical difficulties. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes,
Two,
yeah,
can you
yeah.
hear me?
Spill, we can hear you. Yeah, Spillman, we can hear you. Um, but
There we go.
switch. Yeah, yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay.
But switching gears to our next matchup. Um, I'm guessing this may be the reason that Spillman, acted like he that he was having some technical difficulties because we about to get into that Laker and Timberwolves matchup, and the T Wolves being ahead of his Lakers. So Spills, I'm gonna give you the floor, man. What are your thoughts on what's going on here with this matchup?
Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. I'm having a slight issue.
My audio. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you
What?
hear us?
No, something's happening with my screen. No. Um, no, man. I just feel like the Lakers are mourning the loss of Shannon Sharp because he did some stupid stuff on the internet, and then
Wow.
they can't he
Wow.
can't he
That's the
can't make
reason
funny jokes. He can't
you
make
got to
funny
pull
jokes for
Sharp into
us.
this.
Yeah, it's Shannon's fault. Shannon wanted to be
Wow.
all on websites with premium access, and he lost it
Wow.
for the Lakers. It's
Wow.
Shannon's fault. Stay off the premium access websites, ladies and
Hey
gentlemen.
yo.
You don't need premium access. You
Hey
don't need
yo.
that. That's a bane to your society.
Hey yo.
Jesus didn't believe in premium access. Don't you believe in premium
Wow.
access, ladies and
Wow.
gentlemen?
You
But
see, you
you
see
know,
what's happening, folks. You see what's happening. You got to drag someone not even playing the game for the Lakers. You had to drag them in there as the
I
reason
mean,
why we in the situation that we had. Just say y'all have no answer
I
for
mean,
Ant.
no,
Y'all
that's
have
not
no
it.
answer.
That's not it. We got to answer for Ant. Last game we had a bad game from Luca, and then the first game we had a bad game from LeBron. And I don't think that they're going to get two more bad games from those guys the rest of this series. So I think, like I said here, you see, I'm being funny, but I did say we're gonna win this series in 7, maybe 6. We might go win in 6, ladies and gentlemen. So I don't think that it's the sky is not falling yet. I'm not chicken little, but I mean LeBron has won a 3-1 series before. He was down 3-1 one time, And he won a chip that time. So maybe he's going to do it again, ladies and gentlemen. He's been down 3-1 and won. I don't know any other people's favorite teams that's done that. I actually think that happened to people's favorite team.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny you should mention that, Spills, because you know, in talking about our team, the Warriors, and their matchup against the Rockets, as memory serves, they're leading that series 2-1, and Steph was killing it the last game. So I mean I don't know. I don't know what you mean. I mean, you know, the Rockets are, you know, the second seed, and it's crazy to believe that, you know, you're the second seed and you're not the favorite to win the series. Coming into the series, you supposed to be the second seed of the Western Conference, and you not
But we
even a
had the
favorite
exact
to
same
win your
record
own
as the
series.
Timberwolves. It was a three-way tie for third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. It was a four-way tie. Well, no, it was a three-way tie because you guys are the sixth seed. No, you're the seventh seed. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. It was a three-way tie between third and sixth. Y'all were
See
not
what,
good enough to be in
he's
either of
doing, y'all.
those.
See what he's
Y'all were
doing.
not. It was ties. You know,
See what he's doing.
that's the weakest two seed of all times, ladies and gentlemen. There's no all stars
You
on that
see what he's
team.
doing.
Those are regular season wins that they won. They beat people with
Wow.
gusto. But
Wow.
I did see Draymond talking real spicy at the end of that game, saying that Jalen Green needed to paint his fingernails. He was like, "Paint your fingernails, paint your fingernails." Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
those are fighting words. So I feel
It
like
is. It
Draymond
is. I give him that.
might have hit a bee's nest with a stick, but you know, we'll see. We'll see. I don't think that those
And I'm
young
not gonna
boys
lie.
have enough.
All jokes aside, I am concerned about the Jimmy Butler, you know, injury.
Oh yeah.
Because
Y'all can
we,
do it one game without him, but y'all need him for the series, baby.
I don't know necessarily for the series, but I would say going forward, if we have any chance of winning any title, like we need to have him, you know, on the floor. So um, we'll see what happens with that. If memory serves, where do we stand with that injury? Let me see if I can pull that up right quick, because I know that you know, they recently gave the news surrounding, you know, what type of, you know, injury it was, and I believe they also talked about where we stand in terms of him getting back on the floor, or how long he'll be out. So let me see here. I'm pulling up the info for this specific series. Let's see. Yeah, so it's a pelvic contusion. He's sitting out game 3, but I believe that might mean we might be able to get him in a later game, because yeah, he suffered it in game 2. Let's see. Revealed that he injured his pelvis the game was Monday. So yeah, I guess at this point it's still unknown as to whether he will be in game 4, or if we're able to, you know, hold the line, so to speak, before to game 5, and getting him, you know, later in game 5. So because there is something to be said regarding playoff Butler. That is a real thing. As much as people kind of make fun of it or make a joke of it, it is a real thing. It is a different Butler that you see, and it's not to say that he's not capable of playing during the season, but it's like a whole other level when we're talking about the postseason. So we'll see. But I ain't mad at 2-1 versus 1-2. What do you?
Yeah, that's pretty good. 2-1 instead of 1-2. It's just one game difference. Y'all won one, we lost one. That's just what it means, ladies and gentlemen. You see that? Brandon's trying to make it into something that is not. He's like, "Ooh, we so much better than y'all."
But considering, as we move on from
Y'all
the
lucky y'all didn't play
West,
Timberwolves, because it would be 3-0 right now if y'all was playing the Timberwolves, because y'all don't got nobody that could stop Anthony
I don't
Edwards.
know. I do. I have them getting past the Rockets. We'll see what happens with the
No, I
Lakers
think y'all
and
get
the.
past the Rockets. Yeah, for sure.
I will see what happens with the T-Wolves and the Lakers because I'll be transparent with you, Spills. I had the Lakers getting past the T-Wolves, but
It don't look like it's gonna
The
happen no more,
T-Wolves
ladies
are
and
showing me
gentlemen.
something
No,
else here.
no,
T-Wolves are showing me something else here. So I don't
no.
know.
They looking like they're very tough. I've been watching those games and I've been very sad because it looks like whenever we need to get a bucket, they stop us, and
They
whenever
find the
they need to
answer.
get a bucket, they get the bucket. So it just be like they just come and they just like, and they just punch us real fast, and we be like, ooh,
Keep
on
sucker
our
punching
nose.
you. Keep
And then
sucker
when we try to
punching you.
punch them, they grab our hand. We're like, I'm faster and stronger than you. It doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like we're faster or stronger. So we'll see. We'll see, ladies and gentlemen. I think
For
if
sure.
Luca could average 36 the rest of the series, we could win. I think he's got to do that, but it doesn't look like he could do it because he's doing too much beer and hookah. And maybe this is what Nico was talking about.
Wouldn't that be the irony of how much flack he's been getting that you guys don't make it past the first round and he's like, I told y'all so. I
I
told
told
y'all
y'all.
so.
Y'all trying to talk. I thought I told y'all. Y'all thought I told y'all.
Man, if anyone's rooting for them to not make it past the first round, as much flack as Nico has been getting, I'm sure it's him. So man, that would be an interesting story. Like if because as I said, being completely transparent with you, Spills, I have the Lakers getting past that round. I have them getting past the Wolves, but you know, the Wolves have something else in mind, apparently, versus what other people are expecting to happen with that series. But moving over to the East, I know you had commented briefly on the Cavaliers. Similar to what you have with the
Yeah.
Thunder, I feel like it's a no-brainer.
It's
It's
over.
going to be a sweep. I don't even think it's going to be a gentleman's sweep. Like it's just
Not
going
at
to be a
all.
sweep because you even notice even in the series, you know, the Heat tried to provide their best punches in those first two games, and then it seemed like in the third game they just gave up.
It's over.
So,
That team's gonna get broken up, ladies and gentlemen.
okay, all right, I can see that. I can see that.
Bam's getting traded. Watch Bam get traded for like the Greek Freak, but we could talk a little bit more about that later on in the
I mean, we
segment.
could talk about it next because I mean, the next series that we can dive into is the Pacers and the Bucks with the 4 and 5 seed. I mean, this is another I would say intriguing matchup because kind of in the same way that you have with the Clippers and the Nuggets, there isn't a team within this matchup that seems like they really honestly have an edge. It feels like it could go either way. Maybe you disagree with me, but at least from what I've seen and what the teams are capable of, it seems like it could go either way with those teams. So it will be interesting to see if what will happen if we see the Bucks get another first round exit. Will they get rid of, the coach? Because we've been seeing that a lot lately, right? Where a lot of coaches have been getting the boot. It wouldn't be the first time that our Bucks coach has gotten the boot when he hasn't really, lived up to the expectations of what folks were anticipating you'd be capable of. This is, talking about Doc Rivers, and there's no slight against Doc Rivers. Of course, he's had some success in the league, but at least Reese, he's also had those moments where he's had teams that on paper seem like they could, make a deep run and potentially win a title, and somehow they end up disappointing and underachieving from what folks, are anticipating they're capable of doing. So, but my question to you, Spill, is even if they get past the first round, do you think that Rivers will continue to be the Bucks coach? Let's
I
let's
think
say
they're
they
going to
get
do a
past the first
rebuild
round.
after this year. I think they're going to do a rebuild after this year. Honestly, the experiment with Dame Lillard has not worked.
No,
He's at home. Y'all called Anthony Davis street clothes. Dame Lillard is street clothes in Milwaukee. He has not really played any meaningful basketball there.
but I would say it's
He was
unfortunate because I feel like, and this happens all the time. Is I feel like he unfortunately wasted a lot of his best years
He stayed too
with the
long. He stayed
Trailblazers.
too long with the Trailblazers, trying to
Yeah.
be, you know,
If
loyal
he
to
if
a
he had moved
franchise.
earlier, I feel
For
like
sure, he could have got the
he would
chip.
be in a different position. But he had exhausted a lot of his good years with them, and it was for naught. Like it didn't really amount to anything, unfortunately. So,
Yeah.
which is what you talk about a lot with a lot of star players is: are you maximizing their best years? Are you maximizing their what is it? Their what's the term when you talk about?
Championship window
Yeah, your
or
championship
their
window.
prime.
Yeah, prime. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. So, because I mean, we're aren't we having that same conversation right now with the Nuggets, where Joker is doing some ridiculous things statistically, and you would think that that would amount to multiple trips to the finals, and right now it ain't looking like that.
And that's my problem because I feel like people have been saying Joker's got 3 MVPs. He's a top 5 center all time. Top 5 centers don't get put out like Joker's been getting put out. That's
Yeah,
not how it works. If you're a top 5 center, you in the at least the finals. Like I wouldn't mind if you lose in the finals. Like I know some people go, "Oh, you lost in the finals." I don't care if you lost in the finals. You at least beat all the teams in your conference.
which is why I give LeBron props. I make the joke about LeBron all the time about him being number two, and he's still number two. Don't get me wrong, but it it is still undeniable of what he has been able to accomplish and being able to get teams to the finals. I
Yeah,
can't say
yeah.
anything about that. So
Yeah, for sure. But also, just with Milwaukee, just to finish the point, both Portis and what's the big man's name? Brooke Lopez. Brooke
yes,
Lopez? Brooke.
yeah,
Brooke. 'Cause
yeah, yeah. I
Robin's the
believe
other
so. Yeah,
Robin's the one with the crazy hair.
yeah,
Both Portis and Lopez are gone. And if you don't have those two guys to play along with Giannis, he's basically like he is not a small ball five. He is not a small ball five. He's a power forward. He's a great power forward, but he's not a small ball five. So
yeah,
they're going to
yeah.
ask him to play small ball five next year with Dame, and they're going to try to do things differently. But those two guys are gone, so then Giannis is going to be gone. So I think that Miami should trade for him, trade Bam and a couple of other pieces, get Giannis, and then you'll be back on top of the East. Um, Unless Giannis wants to stay in Milwaukee, which I don't think he wants to stay in Milwaukee. He doesn't seem like he wants to stay there. Um, he's lived the struggle in Greece. He doesn't want to continue to live the struggle in Milwaukee. So we'll see. But I think that this is it. The Bucks, sadly, is a smaller market franchise. They tried to sign the players that Giannis needed, but it was too little, too late. I feel like so. We will see, ladies and gentlemen.
We will. And getting into the Knicks and the Pistons, I feel like this is one of the more forgotten, unfortunately, series out of all the series that are out there because I let's be honest. At the end of the day, do we really see the Knicks or the Pistons really making noise deep into the postseason? Like, I feel like
I
regardless
thought
of,
that at the beginning of the year, I thought that the Knicks could have made the conference finals, but I don't see them making the conference finals no more.
but I'm saying like regardless of whoever wins this series,
They're
is
gonna lose the
are
next
either one
round.
of them going to get past the semifinal? Are
Yeah.
either one of them going to get past the semifinals or the finals? I don't
No.
see either team doing that. So like. I feel like they've kind of, in terms of the news cycle, when we're talking about a lot of these series and how intriguing a lot of these series are, that this is unfortunately one of the ones that are going under the radar because I don't feel like anyone sees either one of these teams really making any noise outside of this initial matchup. So it's unfortunate. I mean, good on the Pistons because I mean, just the fact that they were able to make the turnaround that they had because I remember not too long ago the Pistons when we're talking about that franchise was a desert. Like
Yes, last year,
that's
not
where
too long ago.
franchises went to
Last
die.
year,
You
last
know,
year, for
I just
sure.
yeah, that's where franchises went to die. But particularly with the NBA, but good on them that they were at least able to turn around. So they're on the upswing, so to speak. So that you can't be mad at the fact that you were able to make that turnaround. But yeah, outside of that, um, I don't see anything happening there. And then the Knicks situation, when you have a coach that runs his players into the ground, like and
It
his
peters out. Yeah, that
yeah,
stuff is good for the
eventually you
regular
burn
season. It's
out.
not good for the playoffs. It's not good for the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, yeah. So But last but not least, we have the Celtics and the Magic. And I'm gonna say this, Spills. I think the Celtics, even though I have them getting past this series, I don't see it being a gentleman's sweep. I think they're going to sleep on the Magic. I think the Magic are at least going to get one more game. I think we're actually going to have a series on this. And the only reason why I say that is because as talented as the Celtics are, when we're talking about all those teams that have been, christened as the team to potentially, get to the finals, whether we're talking about the Cavaliers, whether we're talking about the Thunder, the Celtics, while on paper they are super talented, we've seen it time and time again throughout the season where they have not played up to the talent of their team. And or should say they played to the talent of the other team. And in doing so, they've had a lot of like just question mark losses to, teams that they otherwise should have beaten. So I think the same thing's going to happen here in this first round. And I feel like it may actually go 6 games, that they may actually steal one more game before it's all said and done. You may feel differently.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a gentleman's sweep. I know Brandon said that they fought mightily to get that game 3 win, but they got dubbed the first game. They lost by about 10 the second game, and they only won by 1 the last game. So I don't see that they like that. That's a moral victory, and they got a bunch of young guys. And I've been watching the NBA for a very long time. More than 25 years, but I just know that the young teams,
You watching the same
especially if
amount of
you
time. I like that. I like that. Like he's so much of a veteran. But go ahead.
ladies and gentlemen, in my esteemed estimation, I'd like to just say, I don't think that they're going to win any more games. Like, this is what happens. Teams like the Orlando Magic, who are on the come up, they'll win one of those games out of the 5, out of the 7, and then it'll be like, ooh, maybe they can get 2. They can't. They can't. It's too many good veterans on the Celtics. Their coaching is too good. They're just like, they let this one slip. They're not going to let that happen again. They're probably mad that they have to play this 5th game and have to go and play a game in Boston when they could be resting. I think that they regret that.
I don't know, man. Like I can see it happening that just like you said, they're gonna, get up 3 games to 1, and then they're not gonna be able to seal the deal in that elimination game. Magic's gonna steal at least one more game, and then they'll finally close it out. Like that's what I see potentially happening. Because I do agree. I feel like they will respond to be able to take a commanding lead in this series, but I feel like they're going to take their foot off the gas on that elimination game, thinking that they have the series in the bag, and Magic's going to have something else to say about that before it's all said and done. But we'll see. But it will be interesting to see which one of us are right, because based off of what I see there and knowing what the Magic are capable of, I still see them squeezing, stealing one more game, because the Celtics have demonstrated time and time again this entire season that sometimes they take their foot off the gas and they're too lax about things because they know that they're good. So unlike some of the other teams that are hungry, I feel like the Thunder are hungry. They're trying to prove people wrong. The Cavs are hungry. I don't feel like the Celtics are hungry. So, and I don't feel like they're actually going to become hungry until they get further into the playoffs. But this first round, they're like, oh, okay, the Magic, cool. All right. We can kind of go on autopilot with this round. So we'll see. But that's going to do it for what we had to say about the NBA playoffs. What are your thoughts out there? Will the Lakers lose in the first round? Will the Warriors move on to the finals? Just let us know in the comments. Will Nico be proven right about Doncic? We will see. We will see indeed. But switching gears, we'll get into our main topic story. Now I'm gonna pull that up here, which you saw in the background. It's surrounding a couple of horror franchises. One that we have here in the background, but we're going to start first with another horror franchise. I know we were talking about Sarah Michelle Gellar just a moment ago, and it's funny because she was in this said franchise some 28 years ago, so almost 30 years ago. Spills, it's crazy to believe that
Crazy.
that it's been that long since the original film, but I digress. In our main topic segment of Trailer Alley, we're going to talk first about I Know What You Did Last Summer, which the new sequel, as luck will have it, has taken on the same exact name. Directed by Jennifer Caton Robinson, the film follows five friends who inadvertently cause a deadly car accident. They cover up their involvement and make a pact to keep it a secret rather than face the consequences. A year later, their past comes back to haunt them, and they're forced to confront a horrifying truth. Someone knows what they did last summer and is hell bent on revenge. As one by one, the friends are stalked by a killer. They discover that this has happened before, and they turn to two survivors of the legendary Southport massacre of 1997 for help. Starring Madeline Klein, Chase Sue Wonders, Jonah Hayer King, Tyreek Withers, Sarah Pigeon, Billy Campbell, Gabriette Bettel, Austin Nichols, Lola Tung, Nicholas Alexander Chavez, with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt. The sequel arrives in theaters on July 18th, 2025. Spillman, as I said, it's been 28 years. You had a chance to check out the trailer for the upcoming sequel. What are your thoughts?
I'm very excited for this. I'm pretty sure. I bet you any amount of money that you just said that Jennifer Love Hewitt's going to be in it. She's going to play a major role, even though these are the main cast that they've got on that screenshot you were just showing.
Yes.
I'm interested to see what it is. Obviously, I Know What You Did Last Summer was a great movie for us at that age. I think we were, middle school age children when the franchise first started, and it was definitely one of those rites of passage movies by the time we hit high school. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for a new generation to experience that. So we'll see. Obviously, the premise is a good premise. It's kind of crazy though that we're now at the point where movies from when we were children are now being revamped, or when we were young adults are now
Yeah.
gone through the cycle where it's like, oh no,
Yes.
we could just redo this movie. So,
Yeah.
to be doing a revival is very good. So, I'm very interested to see what they do with this franchise.
Okay. Well, I'll take the opposite approach in saying that while I am, don't get me wrong, excited about the prospect of another I Know What You Did Last Summer, outside of just the temporary nostalgia of having, two of the original characters back from the original franchise in this new upcoming film, just as you said, it's weird that almost 30 years later, we're that it seems like we're still retreading the same story. I mean, from what can be observed in the trailer itself, it seems like it's pretty much the same thing that's happening here. And so, while I understand the need to perhaps introduce this to a new audience, and it has been, I get it. We just said it, 30 years with someone who still has this franchise in the back of my mind of it being a classic, however way you feel about the film, it's undeniable its longevity in terms of how memorable it was among that era of films, because we're talking about the same era in which we had our Scream franchise. There were a lot of those films that were coming up around that time that dealt with that slasher subgenre of horror. Whether we're talking about I Know What You Did Last Summer, whether we're talking about Scream, whether we're talking about Urban Legends, we had a lot of those films that were coming up during that time that kind of had a similar
type of vibe where you had this, this serial killer that was, taking out these, young high schoolers, young college students, one by one, and there was, certain circumstances that kind of indicated their motive as to what they're doing. For I Know What You Did Last Summer, you had this accident. For Scream, it dealt with playing with a lot of horror tropes. With urban legend, it dealt with, just as the title suggests, a lot of urban legends and playing with those, tropes of those types of stories and legends. So I don't know how I feel about having to revisit a lot of these story beats just with a new group of people, but because I feel like if you were going to decide, or were making the choice to recycle this story, then just out and out, just make it what is it, a remake. But by bringing back the OG characters, bring back two of the OG characters, I feel like it's wasted bringing them back if you're not going to do anything different. I don't know how you feel about that.
Agree with that. I feel like, wasting OG characters on a 3-second cameo or something is too much.
Yeah,
I feel like they need to do a little bit more.
for sure. For sure. So, I mean, we'll see. I'll still be there in theaters to check it out, but I'm not going to lie. I'm a little skeptical of recycling this story if it's supposed to be a sequel. Maybe there is some twists that they just aren't showing in the promotional materials, but at least from what I gathered with the trailer, it just seems like more of the same. And I'm like, okay, why are we doing this? Why even bother bringing back, two of the OG characters if you're just going to remix the same thing? Like, try to do something different. I mean, I could give Scream a lot of credit for that. We're at what part of the installment now? Like, is it 7 at this
Yeah, it
point?
was like 6 or 7, somewhere around there.
So where you have to find a way to revitalize that franchise. You can't just randomly just decide that it's going to be that it's just going to be a killer that is into horror movies and taking people out. I mean, while that is still the case, they figured out ways to kind of revamp, that franchise, whether it's been changing the setting, whether it has been approaching, different tropes that are changing in the genre itself, because, the horror genre was quite different then, years ago, than it is now. And they've been able to embrace a lot of those new tropes that we have with horror films as well. So we'll see. But the other part, which, as I said, you guys probably saw in the background, we did have a couple of additional peeks at some other franchises. One on the big screen and one on the small screen with our Predator and Alien franchises, respectively. On Wednesday, 20th Century Studios released a teaser for the newest entry in the Predator franchise, subtitled as Predator Badlands. Set to arrive in theaters and IMAX on November 7th. The film, from Prey director Dan Trachtenberg, follows a young predator played by, and I apologize if I'm butchering your name, but Schuster Kolomantanji, and who is an outcast from his clan and finds an unlikely ally in Thea, played by Elle Fanning, and embarks on a treacherous journey in search of the ultimate adversary. Smillman, you had an opportunity to check out the trailer for the upcoming Predator film. I know we had Prey not too long ago, a few years ago. What are your thoughts on what you see here? Hold on, you're muted.
I'm sorry,
Go
ladies
ahead.
and gentlemen. I'm very interested in this. Obviously, the one that seems to be the most entertaining of these three monsters on the screen is the one that's right here next to my head. If you look over here, that's one of the ones from Independence Day, ladies and gentlemen. I
Yes.
am interested in seeing what they're going to do with these Independence Day monsters, because, like, You know, they redid Independence Day without Will Smith, which was a travesty, a scam, and a mockery. I cannot believe that they would
Well,
actually put out.
I'm gonna pause you because we definitely gonna dive into that. But first, what are your thoughts on Predator? Because there is a reason why we
Oh, this
do
is
in
a different
fact
one.
have yeah, there is a reason why we do in fact have our Independence Day alien there. But go ahead.
Okay, so this is not what we're talking about then. But
Yeah,
no, this one looks scary. I've
oh no,
seen
you
this. They've
had it
been
the
talking
right
about
way.
it on
So
the
the way you
internet.
were pointing before was for the Predator, ironically. So you had it.
Ironically, so I was
Yeah,
pointing the right way for the wrong way. I'm a scarecrow,
yeah.
ladies and gentlemen. I'm a reversed image. I'm a mirror.
But yeah, thoughts on Predator Badlands.
No, the Predator Badlands looks cool. I saw, obviously, and I'm gonna talk to you again, internet nerds. Stop complaining about stuff till you actually see it. If you see a movie and it's bad, then the movie was bad. But if you see a clip of the movie for 6 months, a year before it actually comes out, stop complaining about it. Like, oh, you guys whine too much. They've been doing a lot of whining online, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't see it. This thing looks terrifying. Um, it's just terrifying. It's Predator at its best. I think that's pretty good. So I'm okay with this.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, I'll say this in talking about our friend right over here, our Yautja, our Predator. Um, the m- the franchises that we have, and I'll talk first now on Predator. The most recent one that we had, of course, was Prey. We do have another project that's coming. I believe it's going to be on streaming with Hulu of an animated version of the Predator lore, of them talking about different points in history in which the Predators have fought like different human fought human beings at different points in history, whether we're talking about in world wars, whether we're talking about with samurais, things like that. I like what they're doing, with this franchise. Different things that they're trying. I understand with this new film with Badlands that this will be the first time that we actually have, even though you can technically say like an AVP, he was a protagonist by the end. In this film, we will undoubtedly have our Predator as the protagonist, which is a nice. It's a good change of pace from what we're seeing before, the normal formula that we had with Predator films, where the Predator is the antagonist and is the person who is pursuing our protagonist. But that's not going to be the case with this one. With us having a younger Predator, it allows us to be able to empathize, with that character, because he's not going to be as seasoned. He's not going to be as perhaps capable as other Predators that we've seen in prior installments in this film franchise. So it allows us to be able to root for this character as they develop the skills that we come to expect that Predators, that Yautjas are capable of doing in their hunts. And then it will also give us, some insight further into the lore of Predator, which I'm interested in, because a lot of times as I said, we're dealing with a lot of, in prior installments, dealing with Predators that have been around for a long time and are not on the beginnings of their journey. They're kind of on the tail ends of their journey, where they, kind of been there and done that, and have been successful in a lot of their pursuits. So this will be interesting to be able to follow a Yautja that is just now beginning their journey. And that's an interesting perspective to approach the Predator franchise. So I'm definitely intrigued as to what they decide to do. Um, I'll punt it over to the other part of our story, which I know Spillman hopped ahead with, and that is with the Alien franchise. There were a couple of clips as well as promos that they had over this week that provide some more insight into that series that's supposed to be airing on FX. And just to give some further insight into that show, I will provide the synopsis for that said show. It goes as follows. When a mysterious space vessel crash lands on Earth, a young woman, Sydney Chandler, and a ragtag group of tactical soldiers make a fateful discovery that puts them face to face with the planet's greatest threat in the series Alien Earth from creator Noah Hawley. So, in talking about this series, some of the teases that we got some teases of some of the other creature spills that we have, in this show. The reason why I have the title that I have here of is this an unofficial alien or 20th century's unofficial alien universe is across all of these projects, there are clues and hints that we're working within the same universe. So, when we're talking about the Predator franchise, for those that are eagle-eyed viewers, you saw that one of the characters had their eyes change, and it's already been, demonstrated or shown that what that character's eyes are changing into is basically the logo for the Weyland-Yutani corporation, which, if you know your lore, is a major component in the Alien franchise. So you have a character in a Predator franchise, and this is supposed to be a futuristic story. You have a character in the Predator franchise that apparently may be a synthetic. And not only is a synthetic, but is a Weyland-Yutani synthetic. So is that saying that, we are, because I know for a while after what transpired with the latest film in the AVP franchise, that it kind of was put on the back burner. Are they revisiting the possibility of merging these franchises together, and will we perhaps get a further tease, or will we just explicitly just get aliens in this upcoming Predator sequel? The reason why, I'm glad you had brought that up earlier, Spills, why I put up the what is it, the Independence Day alien, is for those that are eagle-eyed viewers. Also, in that scene that we have in that Predator trailer where you have that trophy room, one of the trophies that a lot of people I can't take credit for, but it's undeniable that of what people have observed, that one of those trophies appear to be the alien from Independence Day, which, if you think, is not too far of a stretch, because Independence Day is made by, formerly 20th Century Fox, now 20th Century Studios. And if you know how like those aliens work, where they have, the biomechanical suits and everything, it's not too much of a stretch to believe that they function in this same world as the xenomorphs and as the Yautja. So I know a lot of folks that there also has been talk that maybe how would this work, because the most recent, because I know you were talking about the most recent Independence Day film, and that sequel, if memory serves, and people have talked about this too, because they were like, how would that work, is that they kind of have like an alternate history with the Independence Day franchise of how like Earth has been able to kind of update its technology after having that encounter with the aliens. And I know, like, if we're talking about the Alien and Predator franchise, there hasn't really been any indication in those present day installments that the same event has happened in those films. But my explanation of that is, you can just ignore it. Like, no one really enjoyed, let's be honest, Independence Day Resurgence. So you
I
see
didn't
it.
even watch it. I stand with Will. I stand with Will. We listened to that new album he put out, but we did not go see that movie without him in it.
But
Will
I'm saying
Smith
it
is
happens
Independence
all
Day.
the time.
Welcome to Earth.
But I'm saying it happens all the time where, you do quote unquote requels. You would ignore certain stories for the sake of doing another story. It happened with the Halloween franchise, right? Where they did the remake that it was supposed to pick up right from the first film and ignored all the other in between. So they could do the same thing with Independence Day. So, I mean, which is exciting at the prospect of being able to do that when
Yeah.
we're talking about those franchises. Because could you imagine having, you know, those aliens with the biomechanical suits fighting against predators, but then also having, like, you know, the xenomorphs fighting amongst all of them, or them both having to team up to go against the xenomorphs. So, but yeah, like, I don't know what you guys think out there. It's interesting to have the prospect of having all of these characters um, to be in the same space. However, I will also say, as exciting as it would be to have all of these characters potentially exist in the same universe, is it something that we really need? Because thus far, when we're talking about the Independence Day aliens, they exist in a very PG-13 type of universe versus a rated R one. So, but Spill, I'm sorry, I said all of that. What are your thoughts on the possibility of having all of these three creatures collide?
I feel like the Independence Day aliens are the missing link between alien aliens and the Predator aliens. I feel like the Predator aliens are full on people in suits. They look like aliens, but they're definitely just still people in suits. The aliens and the alien aliens are animal aliens. Those are like wild beasts. But these alien aliens, they do not do like these alien aliens where they're just like, all right, this is for sport. We don't really want to take over Earth. We just got a couple places where we go. It's our hunting lodge. Y'all are animals. We hunt y'all. So since these guys want to take over the Earth, they want to take over the Earth. They're a mixture of the two in the middle. So I don't know. I feel like you can never have too many aliens in that movie about aliens, but you can also have too many aliens in a movie about aliens. Like it just feels like,
I get you. I guess the thing that like I said,
what's their motivation?
my only concern is the tone. When we're talking
Mhm.
about the Independence Day aliens, you're talking about a very specific tone that is not like over the top the way Alien and Predator is. Not to say that they wouldn't fit in that universe. It would just be interesting to see them inhabit that world. But, you know, in contrast to what you're saying about those said aliens, the thing that I feel would make this fascinating is considering the different value systems and the different goals of each of these species. You know, you have one species as almost like a cancer that can spread across, you know, a particular civilization. You have another one that's honorable, that, you know, they have a very strict code of how they operate. And then you have another one that's, you know, kind of, you know, the antithesis of like greed, where they just, you know, try to take the resources of a given civilization and leave, you know, leave that said civilization, you know, to its own devices. So it would be interesting to see how they are able to incorporate those said respective lores, because I feel like it can be done because they contrast in such a way where you can allow each species to kind of have its moment while also further exploring how their contrasting motivations can bring them into conflict with each other. So we'll see what happens.
We'll
I
see.
am.
It feels kind of flimsy. It feels like they was like, hey, we own this IP, and if we don't use it, we're gonna lose it. So let's go ahead and make this movie.
I get that. The cynical part of me feels that way
Cynically,
too. Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen.
the cynical part of me feels that way too. But I mean, what else are they doing with Independence Day? You know, if y'all can find a way to revitalize Independence Day, why not? Why not? So, but that's gonna do. Excuse me. That's gonna do it for this episode of This Week in Pop Culture. Thank you guys again for you know, tuning in. Whether you are tuning in live right now or tuning in after the fact, and sharing your comments on each of the stories that we had. As always, I want to thank my co-host, Mr. Smillman Trueheart. I'll punt it over to you, sir. Can you tell folks where they can find you?
You see this, ladies and gentlemen, this is week 3 that my hand gestures are not working, and I don't feel like I'm working my stuff right. People at Apple Computer Incorporated, please get in touch with me so that you can help me troubleshoot it. I was told by Apple Care that I would have video gestures by this week's show, and I do not have them, so I'm frustrated, ladies and gentlemen.
There you have it. There you have it.
Hopefully next week you'll have some sparkle, because I learned a new one because I'm looking at the things. This apparently is lasers, but it won't let me do the lasers. Terrible.
So again, I want to thank Spills for co-hosting this week's show. As always, I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me on X at Brandon Troy ENT down below, and also Brandon Troy _ENT on Instagram. That being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and
No hand
see you
gestures.
soon.
Yeah, no hand gestures. It don't work. Boo.
Bye, y'all.